Welcome back to another episode in the Beyond Addiction series. My name is Adrian Webster, and I would like to really continue what we started in the previous episode. The topic for the next half an hour is confrontation, and we're going to be talking about intervention principles. So in our last episode, we had been speaking about the identifying characteristics of a drug abuser. We had gone through those four broad categories, the changes in behavioral pattern, changes in functioning, episodes of intoxication, and then the other miscellaneous category, including, stealing from the home and drugs disappearing from the medicine cabinet and so on. So now let's assume for a moment that we have identified positively that somebody is involved in drug addiction, or we have a very strong suspicion thereof. What do we do now? How do we intervene in this situation? And to get us started in looking at some of the principles that we need to keep in mind, I'm going to call my friends to the screen, Charlie Brown and Linus. And so they're walking along here, and Charlie Brown is saying, "Well, Linus, you've gone without your blanket for a whole week. I'll never last another week. I have hot and cold flashes. My eyes won't focus. I got to have that blanket. I'm cracking up and nobody cares. Nobody. Do you get the desperation there in little Linus's voice? Do you see the desperation of his situation? He feels isolated. He feels alone. He feels like nobody can relate to him. He's trying to get past his habits, but they're calling him back. He's still going through withdrawal, and he's still going through the challenge of breaking free of that old way of life, that old lifestyle. You must expect that as you intervene in people's lives, as you seek to help others to come out of this world, that they too are going to go through these experiences where they feel isolated, where they feel alone, where they need a good friend who can sympathize, who can empathize, who can be there with them through thick and through thin. Another little cartoon here, Linus talking to Charlie Brown. He says, "I'm going to try to give up this blanket, Charlie Brown. I want you to take care of it for me. But no matter how much I plead, don't give it back to me." "Good grief, I can't do it. I think I've changed my mind. Please give it back." "Well, okay, here you go. You're weaker than I am." When we are helping people through the problem of drug addiction, helping them to come out the other side, we often have to be the strength for them when they are down, when they are weak. Don't expect that it's always going to be smooth sailing or plain sailing when you're trying to help someone to come out of the world of drug addiction. The reality is that they are going to go through moments of weakness, and your role as a counselor, your role as a friend, your role as assistant is to be strength for them when they have no strength of their own. That means sometimes that you may have to be quite firm. That means at times you may have to say no and mean it emphatically. It may be that at times you have to give some positive encouragement because they just want to go back. They just want to give up. Your role is to be strength when the other person is weak. Your role is not just to be a fair weather friend, not just to be, well, okay, if you decide this today, I'll support you. If you decide that tomorrow, I'll support you as well. Whatever you decide, I'm there for you. No. We don't need vacillating friends like that when we ourselves are vacillating, trying to come out of the world of drug addiction. We need someone who's going to be firm. We need a rock that we can anchor to, somebody who's going to help us to snap out of our faulty thinking patterns, that's going to help us to be able to see clearly and to endure until the end, that we may find the life of victory. Your role is not just to do whatever they feel like doing, go in the direction they feel like going in. Your role is to be a strength for them when they are going through a moment of weakness. So let's talk about intervention, and let's start by talking about some of the common intervention mistakes that many people make. The first on the list is blunt and angry accusations. You will know that as you begin to intervene in someone's life, there comes a point where intervention means sitting down and talking about the problem. Especially in a situation where you may not have all the facts, in a situation where you may have a suspicion, but you have not got that suspicion confirmed with any hard evidence, it's important to maintain an attitude of openness. It's important to be able to listen and not just to level blunt and angry accusations. When this happens, we move away, we become unapproachable. The person who we're talking to will not confide in us, will not open up to us when we come at it, not from an inquiring perspective, How can I be of assistance? Is this a problem in your life? But when we come at it and we just blast them with blunt and angry accusations, we may have even misunderstood circumstances. Now, obviously, if you have the hard facts and you have clear evidence, then you need to be firm on your convictions about what's going on. But still, avoid the blunt and the angry accusations that are often so easy to make. And by the way, this is especially a problem where we feel, where the person in our sphere of influence, the person we're trying to help, is a close friend or a family member. Why is it that we are often harder on those who are closest to us than we would be if it was the neighbor's kid from across the road who came over and said, you know, Uncle Adrian, I know that you do this lecturing and this dealing with drug addiction. I have a problem. I would put my arm around that person. I'd invite them in. I'd say, well done. Thank you for acknowledging the problem. That's the first step to recovery. Let's talk about it. But when my child comes home and says, Dad, I've got myself into trouble, you know, I've been getting involved in substance abuse, I just completely lose it. What is the matter with you? Why are you doing this? You know how this makes me feel? I feel betrayed and all the rest of it. Why is it that we'll often fly off the handle and become blunt and angry and accusatory with our own children, with those closest to us, but we've got all the time in the world for those who are strangers to us? You know, I believe it's because those who are closest to us inflict the most pain on us. You see, what does the neighbor's child owe me? Nothing. I haven't clothed them. I haven't educated them. They are not within what I haven't invested my life in them. But when my spouse, when my family member, when my child develops this problem, I know how I've tried to raise them. I know that I've tried to give them the best principles. I know I've given them every advantage possible, and I feel like there's a great big old knife that's been stuck in my back. I feel like I have failed, and it becomes a personal thing. It becomes a personal attack on myself, and thus I respond in the same manner. I feel personally hurt. I feel personally betrayed, and as a result of that, I respond sometimes in a very harsh manner to those who are closest to me. When the problem is affecting those in our close circle, we need to take extra precautions that we don't become blunt and angry and accusatory. This problem is not about me. This problem is about helping the other person come out. So we want to maintain an attitude of openness and not shut down the doors of communication through blunt and angry accusations. Another mistake we often make is we condemn the person instead of the action. We're no longer talking about the problem, we're talking about the person. So again, this often happens with those who are closest to you. So my child comes home, she says, you know what, this is the problem, I've fallen into this problem. Or maybe I get the call from the headmaster at school. They call me and they say, this is what we found in the bag, or this is what we found happening behind the gymnasium, smoking a joint between classes, or whatever the case may be. What do? I fly off the handle and I start addressing the person instead of speaking about the problem. So it might go something like this. Oh, I don't believe you've done this. I mean, I've known that you were trouble from the day you were born. You gave your mother 12 hours of labor pains. I should have known that day that you wouldn't amount to anything. You see, what we're doing there is we are now making it about the person. We're no longer talking about the problem. We're leveling all sorts of accusations around at the character and at the person of the being that's involved. That's a big difference between talking about the problem of addiction and trying to solve the problem of addiction. We do not want to get to the point where we are blurring the lines between the behaviors and the person that's involved. When we do that, we shut down the lines of communication, and it becomes difficult to have any positive influence in the life and the experience of these individuals. Another big mistake that people make is that they allow situations to slide. So I come home one day and there's my child passed out on the couch, passed out on the floor. They've had too much to drink. They've had too much marijuana or cocaine or whatever it may be. And, there they are. So I've caught them now. I know there's a problem, and there they are lying on the floor. So what do? You know what? I've had a long day at the office. I really don't feel like dealing with this. I know it's going to end up as a fight. I don't have the strength for this. I don't have the emotional reserves for this. So I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to make as if the problem isn't there. Hopefully it'll just go away. If it happens a second or a third or a fourth time, then I'll know there's a trend. And after all, teenagers experiment anyway, right? So maybe this is just the experimental phase and it'll blow over. When we allow situations to slide, we send a clear message that it's not that important, that it doesn't really matter all that much. We want to be very wary, very careful. Every situation must be addressed. Now, I don't say that the situations must be addressed right then and there while the person's half unconscious or completely inebriated or whatever the case may be. We may delay the dealing with the situation until the next morning, until the person is sobered up or whatever the case is. But we are not going to just let the situation slide as if it doesn't matter. Another big mistake that people make is that they sometimes back down at the first signs of resistance or confrontation. So I go and I now approach the subject with my child or with my student or whoever it is, and of course the initial reaction is one of defensiveness. The initial reaction is one of, it's not me, I didn't do it, how can you accuse me of this? I can't believe that I'm even hearing this from you. By the way, sometimes the most defensive behavior is coming from the most guilty people. It's a way of trying to deflect attention away from themselves over to the one who's trying to intervene. So they now try and make the problem about your attitude and about your intention and about the way you see them. And I can't believe it, and I feel so disappointed that you don't trust me. Well, listen, if you're not giving me reasons to trust you, why should I trust you? Trust is something which is earned. It's not just something that happens out of nothing. So we confront the situation, we get this resistance, we get this pullback, we get this difficult situation, and so what we say is, you know what, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm done, forget it, I'm not interested anymore. Big mistake. Another situation, by the way, that is often a challenge when we're doing intervention in someone's experience is a lack of group unity or a lack of unity. Now, this applies to a situation where you're doing a group intervention. What is a group intervention? This is where, you may have been trying to deal with somebody who you really, really 99% sure are doing drugs or even 100% sure is doing drugs. But they're scaly, they're slippery and slimy, and they're just not giving you that hardcore evidence that you need to nail them down. They are very sneaky, very skilled at evading and getting away from you and talking themselves out of a situation, and you don't always have all the game players present, you don't always have the sources of the information present with you, that somebody told you this, another person told you that, they're not with you, and every time you confront this person who you know is doing drugs and you say, this is what I've heard, this is what was told to me, they always have a way of smooth talking you and getting away from it. You don't buy it, but on the other hand, how do you pin them down on it? So you get a group of people together, people who have hardcore evidence. They know, they have seen, they have heard, they've had first-hand experience in the situation. You sit the person down with this group of people and you say, now this is what we know is going on. Will you open up to us and will you tell us? Oh, no, but that's not what's going on. Well, then you have this person, Exhibit A, who's able to bring evidence to the table and say, you told me at such and such a time that this is what was going on. Another person says, but you told me that you have a problem. Why did you tell me you were having a problem if you didn't have a problem? So you've got all those people together who with their pieces of information, and they are able to confront the person and give a clear message. We know what's going on here. Stop lying, stop running. It's not acceptable, and we are here as a support group to help you to come out of this thing and to find healing. But when you have that group intervention, there needs to be a meeting beforehand where you decide what the game plan is, what the next steps are, and how you're going to approach the subject. You do not want cracks in this united front showing. One person says one thing and the other person says another, because listen, drug users are extremely manipulative. When they figure out where the weak point is, where the crack is, they will work that crack until the whole wall falls apart. Do you understand? So we want a unified front, and whatever happens in that group setting, this applies even with two parents who are approaching their child. The child will know who to manipulate in what way. He'll know that he can intimidate mom, so he gets loud and aggressive and screams and shouts. But he knows that with dad, he's got to take a different approach. So parents need to stand together, decide what the consequences are going to be, decide what the next steps are going to be, so that there's no debate in front of the addict. So that there's no, we're going to do this. No, well, honey, actually, maybe that's a little bit harsh. Maybe we should do something else. No, we don't do that. And even if one person disagrees with what the other person has said in the group intervention, you don't disagree right there in front of the person. No cracks must be seen. There must be a unified front in going forward into this group intervention. So one of the intervention mistakes, a lack of unity and agreement amongst those who are involved in a group intervention in a person's life. Let's look for a moment at some of the positive intervention principles, going over from those dangers, from those risk factors, and let's look at the good things that you want to do when you are intervening in someone's life. First of all, you must realize that love is the basis of action, and it seeks to do what's best for the best interests of the person who you're seeking to help. In other words, what we're saying here is love doesn't just do whatever is going to please that person. Sometimes, and this is the challenge with the principle of love, love is not just a warm, fuzzy, emotional feeling. Love is a principle of action where the best interests of the other person is put ahead of your own. So when we act, we should be acting out of the principle of love. So in the principle of love, I'm going to do what's in that person's best interest, which may not be what they want me to do. It may not be the easy way out. It may not keep them happy, but it is still the loving thing to do. I always highlight this because parents will be accused by their children. If you loved me, you wouldn't be doing this to me. Or some people will play the Christian card and will say, oh, you Christians talk about love and grace, but look how you're treating me. No. Love isn't just capitulating to the desires of the person who you're seeking to help. Love sometimes means making difficult decisions, decisions with perhaps even unpleasant consequences for the addict, because it's in their best interest. It's in the interest of facilitating the healing experience. Have you ever thought about this? Should you ever call the police on your own child? Should you ever get to a point where you're willing to have them arrested, where you would press charges against your own child? You know, the loving thing to do, some people would say, is never. I could never do that. I love my child too much. My answer, and I don't say this lightly, is if you truly love your child, there are certain circumstances where that is in their best interests, where they need to have a clear message sent to them that a certain behavior and a certain way of acting and living is not benefiting them and it's hurting others. I've been in homes where drug addict children have beaten their parents, have robbed them blind, they've been committing crimes, and here's the point. You may think it's the merciful thing not to call the cops on your child. That's the loving thing to do. But let me tell you something. When they commit a crime against a stranger, the stranger is going to have no mercy on them. It may be the loving thing in their best interest for you to be the one who pulls the plug on their criminal activity, for you to be the one who presses charges, because that puts you in the driving seat. It means you can arrange and negotiate with the prosecutor to get them help rather than sending them to jail. The guy next door, the stranger, is not going to be interested in their rehabilitation. A crime was perpetrated against them, just like you would not be interested in the sob story of some other parent's child who committed a crime against you, broke into your house and stole your goods. Somebody else out there is not going to be interested in your sob story about your dear child who needs help and intervention. So if worst comes to worst and physical violence is involved and criminal activity and stealing is taking place and all the rest of it, then it may be in the best interest of the child that a serious wake-up call be sent to them and you take control of the situation, put yourself in the driver's seat so that you can negotiate with the prosecutor to get them help. And how do you do that? Worst case scenario, you may have to be willing to press charges to have them arrested. That is not the nice thing to do, but in certain circumstances, it may be the loving thing to do. Are you understanding the differentiation I'm making between the warm, fuzzy feelings that often people call love and the principle of love in which you're looking out for their best interest, for their healing? The next principle is you need to be willing to assist practically. It's no good just to be able to, shout at someone and tell them their place and tell them what they shouldn't be doing. It may mean taking them off the street and cleaning them up. It may mean getting to a point where you go and fetch your child from that bar and you put them in a cold bath and you clean them up and you sort them out. Being able to minister to a person practically is very important. It adds credibility to the words of having their best interests on your heart. We want to avoid the principle of familiarity. Familiarity is a situation where I feel like I've got to talk like them, I've got to dress like them, I've got to go to those places with them. I've known people who as adults have thought they'll look out for the young people by driving them to the parties and making sure that they're safe and all the rest. And in the end, those people become drug addicts themselves. We don't have to look like, be like, talk like to win the confidence. I mean, think about it. If you are exactly like on the outside, if you look the same and you have nothing unique to offer, then why would they want to get help from you? We also want to remember that prayer is a very important factor in overcoming the problem of addiction, in intervening in someone's best interests. we must remember that prayer is not just about, Lord, help that person because they need your help. Yes, we intercede on behalf of others, no problem with that. But have you ever noticed that when you really pray in a meaningful way about someone or something, you develop a burden on your heart for that someone? In other words, prayer not only is about the fact that, Lord, somebody over there needs your help, but prayer is also about, Lord, help me, open my heart up, make me receptive. If I am to be a channel of healing and of blessing in this person's life, then so be it. Lord, help me, give me the graces that I may be able to be a positive influence in that person's life. You see, the underlying principle in all this intervention is to love and accept the person, but not the practice. We need to be clear about how we view the practice, but we also need to be clear in communicating our care and our concern, our love and our affection to our child as a person, to our student as a person. We are interested in them, while yes, we do not condone what is being done. Another principle is that we need to sometimes be willing to seek professional assistance. We need to be willing to recognize that I can't always do it by myself. Sometimes the responsible thing to do is to get help from a medical professional and to know that, guess what, this person's going through withdrawal. That could be a dangerous process, especially if they're withdrawing from heroin in a serious way. It can even result in death. I may need some assistance from those in the know, from those who know what they're doing. I do this kind of educational, almost primary care lectures and preventative work all over the place. And so I often get called by people to come and help. And even I know I have to say to them, look, in this situation, you need some professional intervention. Yes, I educate on the subject, but we are talking about a life-threatening situation here. We're talking about a dangerous situation. Yeah, get the police involved or get the hospitals involved, get a medical professional involved, get a drug rehabilitation clinic involved, because this person may in fact need some professional assistance. Then we also want to get reliable information and know the facts. This is a matter of credibility. You know, a lot of drug users are quite intelligent about what they're doing. Some don't have a clue, they're just in it for the pleasure. But I remember in my circle of friends, there was one in our circle whose father was a doctor, and he would go take the big medical manuals off his shelf, the Merck manual, and go study up about the chemical composition of these drugs and what to expect and so on. Imagine you meet someone like that and you start spouting off about all sorts of information, and clearly they know better than you. You will lose credibility in their eyes. And when you do say something that could make a difference, they may doubt whether they can trust you. The next thing that you must always remember is to be a good listener. Often when you're intervening, we need to listen to where a person is coming from. We need to understand their life history. We need to understand what the problem is, because as we get to the deeper issues underlying the problem, we will realize what the issues are that need to be dealt with so that the cause of the drug-seeking behavior can be eliminated. Withdrawal from a substance, physical detoxification, is only one small part. We need to deal with the root cause of the problem, and that comes by being a good listener. Remember that only those who truly want to be helped can be helped. Now you think, Adrian, wait a second, then why do we force people into rehabilitations and into hospital care and so on? Very simple reason. If they do not choose somewhere along that process that they want to get out, they want the help, then they will go through that, comply with their conditions to get out, and they will go right back to their old behaviors. But yes, although we know we cannot help anybody who does not want to be helped, at the same time, there are times when we, against their will, certify them and check them into drug rehabilitation in the hopes that as they are physically detoxed and the brain begins to work efficiently again, they'll realize there's a world out there beyond addiction. They'll realize that there is in fact something more to live for, and that they will then voluntarily buy into the program. So they went in against their will, but as they detox and the brain starts to work properly, they begin to buy into the program, and in this sort of situation, in this context, the next thing that happens is healing is effected. We also want to remember to keep confidentiality, except in a situation where life is in danger. This is a matter of trust. We need to keep the lines of communication open, and that means being able to let the person confide in you, but there is a situation where you would break that confidentiality while you also tell them that you're going to break that, and that's where a life is in danger. If somebody knows that somebody's planning to suicide by overdose, or that somebody is in a very difficult situation, they're in a life-threatening situation, then yes, in that case, confidentiality should be broken, but you should inform the person who has trusted you with that information. I just love this advert here that warns us of the dangers of addiction. It says here, "My mom knows I would never hurt her. Then she got in the way." You need to know that sometimes intervention can be dangerous. Sometimes we need some professional assistance when we try and intervene in a person's life. The bottom line, friends, in all of this is very simple. We need to stay humble. I just love this little cartoon here with little Linus. Boy, am I stubborn. I'm the most stubborn person alive. I'm like a rock, permanent, immovable, fixed. Old Snoopy knocks him over. He's still lying flat on his back, doesn't even know he's down. Steadfast, unalterable, and unyielding. You know, when I saw this little cartoon, it reminded me of this Bible verse found in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 12, where it says, "Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall." Oh, you may pride yourself because you've never had a problem with substance abuse. But listen, we need to set aside our pride when we go and deal with others who are struggling. Your problem might not be substance abuse, but your problem might in fact be pride. All of us have a weakness, some sort of moral weakness in our lives. And we sometimes look down our noses at those who have obvious outward situations, obvious outward weaknesses. We look down on them and we think to ourselves, how can a person get into that situation? Those people are weak. We may be struggling with pride. And which is worse, by the way? The guy who's lying in the gutter and knows he needs help, or the guy who's so filled with pride that he feels no need of his help, he doesn't realize his true condition? Obviously, the guy who's struggling with pride is in an even more dangerous perspective from a moral, spiritual perspective than the guy who's lying in the gutter and knows he needs help. I implore you, as you intervene in people's lives, as you seek to do them good, as you seek to assist them in coming out of the world of drug addiction, stay humble. Walk humbly and know that but for the grace of God, there goes you as well. Know that God has a place in His heart for even the most fallen of people. That just as you have a place in His heart, so does the person who's weakened morally through the use of drugs and substance abuse. There is hope beyond addiction, and you and I can be agents of healing in lives for those who are not yet at the point where they realize they need help. They need someone to intervene. They need someone who cares. Apply these principles. Pray for wisdom from God, for a heart of true love. And may God bless you as you seek to be a positive influence in those who are struggling with the problem of addiction. Allow me to share a word of prayer with you. Heavenly Father, will you bless the viewer? I ask again that you will just intervene in the viewer's life. Give them wisdom as they may be a parent struggling with a child in the home. Show them how to love the child. Show them how to do what is in the best interests of the child. Show them, Lord, where it's time to show mercy and when it's time to show sternness and firmness. Give them grace as they deal with people in their community and in their church. And take away our spirit of conceited pride and arrogance. Help us to realize that as somebody else may be struggling with addiction, we struggle with sin in our own life. We're all in the same boat, and we all need your divine intervention, where you would see fit to use the viewer as an agent of intervention in someone's life. Enable them, give them grace, give them wisdom, and give them a heart of love. In Jesus' name, amen.